So I am going to turn the program over now to Greg Foster to introduce our guest. Greg.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Maggie. Yeah, it's a real pleasure to have David Loya here this morning, a colleague and someone who really stepped up at the beginning of the pandemic and helped us create a emergency loan program for local businesses, and all-around good guy. And he's going to talk this morning about housing. And so David is the Arcata Community Development Director, and he has a diverse background in biology, housing, economic development policy, implementation, urban planning, including current and future planning, but past planning he doesn't do, and climate adaptation planning. He oversees the long-range planning updates for the local coastal plan, the general plan, and the targeted rezoning to meet the city's share of our regional housing goals. His approach to future planning emphasizes integrating science, economic policy, racial equity, and community collaboration to develop actionable and equitable policy. And I am told from David directly that he is currently wearing bunny slippers. I don't know if that's true or not. Maybe we'll put him to the test at the end of the presentation, but I'll turn it over to David. The floor is yours.
Thanks, Greg. Good morning, everyone. I guess I'll just start by telling you something you already know, that obviously the Sunrise Rotarians are the best Rotarians. You guys know how to get it done, right? It's like, get up in the morning, do this thing, got it, and then on with the rest of the day. So can certainly appreciate that. And I wanted to thank you for inviting me. I think it's been at least a year since I spoke to you last. It's probably been more like about 3. And I think the last time that I came and spoke to you all, I was talking about this concept. The concept was, this bold new plan for housing in Arcata. And, I had a lot of skeptics back then. And I'm glad to report that now we're sort of in the thick of it. I'll talk to you a little bit about what we've done since I spoke to you last in terms of housing, talk to you about a couple of projects, but a lot about the planning work that we're doing and looking into the future. And I didn't list on my bio that Greg read that I do past planning, but I do look to the past to try and inform our future planning quite a bit. And so that is definitely something, past planner is in my resume as well. I want to share with you, and I'm hoping that I can pull off the sound on this video too, because I want to share with you some of the resources that we've been doing at the City of Arcata. So I'm going to hopefully share my screen here, and this will kind of organize some of the discussion. To show you the web page we're using to communicate to the public the work that we're doing, and also sort of collect the information that that we're collecting, so we can reflect that back to the public, tell them where our events are, share the work product that we're creating, and generally use this website as a launching platform for this project. So what are we doing with housing? Well, many of you know we've done a lot of housing production. The Plaza Point is a good example of 32-unit senior affordable housing project. We've done projects like that all throughout town, and we're really active in bringing grant dollars from outside the state to our community to help create affordable housing. We've also continued to streamline over the past 10 years that I've been working with the city, our planning process and our building process to make Arcata a good place for builders. I'm sure you can, still find someone who can gripe about our process. I'm not saying it's perfect, but many people that I talk to do feel like we've really improved and that we're one of the best jurisdictions to work with in the county. So I'm proud about that. When it comes to development, sometimes there's an us versus them mentality that develops between a jurisdiction and developers. And I think that the City of Arcata has really embraced the concept that development is not a bad thing. We need it. We all need houses to live in. We need businesses to shop at. We need places to do, to go and work. And so we've embraced the mentality that we're really partners with our developers and tried to, change attitudes and perspectives and the culture at the City of Arcata so that we're actually working in partnership. One of the big lessons that's been learned, at least by my department over the last couple of years, with some of the major projects that we tried to bring to the community, is that community members are really wanting to have a lot more participation, a lot more say, a lot more ability to help guide the way that the community is going to look than they can get on a project by project review. When someone comes in for a large scale project, we ask them to fill out an application. They spend about a year developing their environmental documents and their application. We bring it to a hearing. We give people 10 days notice. They have to get up to speed on what the project is. And we tell them, hey, look, this comports with all of our codes. And so we're going to recommend approval. And they're literally freaking out because they've never seen it before. Whereas we've been working with it for the past year. And so we're trying to change the way that we to do that kind of planning. And the concept is that, let's get broad community input at the beginning, create a set of plans that provides some assurance for the developers and for the community that we know what we're looking at. We know what projects are going to be brought forward. We know what they're going to look like. We know how they're going to impact the human environment. And we've done that all together. Now, certainly there are going to be people down the road that didn't participate, but this provides for a lot more assurance in the process. From a developer's perspective, when they come forward with a project, they're looking at how long is it going to take me, how much money is it going to cost me, and what is the uncertainty involved in the process, what kind of things are going to come up in the process. And so from the developer's perspective, what this work will do is eliminate the time and uncertainty elements to that. From the community's perspective, they're also going to get some uncertainty eliminated and have a lot more assurance as to what's going on. So all of this is couched in what we're calling the Strategic Infill Redevelopment Program. Big, long string of fancy words that essentially means, how do we take some of the areas that, have legacy uses, for example, the K Street corridor around the Creamery District, which was historically used for, logging. The old barrel factory was out there, a lot of mills, a lot of industrial uses, squashed right in between two residential areas in the downtown. How do we take these, legacy properties and transition them into the future so that they provide new economic opportunities and housing opportunities for the City of Arcata? So that's where the redevelopment component comes from. The infill program, or the infill component, comes from this concept that the City of Arcata doesn't want to expand its boundaries. The easiest way to create a program for development is to develop somewhere where people aren't. You've probably all heard of NIMBYs, not in my backyard. Folks that don't want to have some new thing happen in the vacant parcel next door to theirs, the parcel that they feel like they've enjoyed the vacantness of for the last 10 years is suddenly having a project go up in it, and they feel like they have a right to say no, it shouldn't. But when you're developing away from people, that makes it easy. Well, that would mean developing into the bottoms, or it would mean developing, into the hill slopes. And so the City of Arcata wants to stay within its boundaries. So that's where the infill part comes in. And the strategic is really what I talked about previously, bringing people together, making sure that we have a plan that is, vetted by the community, that is, vetted by the industry, the type of housing that they want to build, and that is something that the financial institutions will back. And so we're trying to align all the different sectors that it takes to create development. So those are the primary concepts behind this Strategic Infill Redevelopment Program. We're driving the engagement into areas where we haven't driven before. Traditionally, our engagement involves maybe holding a town hall at the community center, but then largely having meetings at the City Council, the Planning Commission. We've been I guess, one of the silver linings to the pandemic is that we've been using Zoom to reach people that we haven't been able to reach before. And we've been creating a lot of electronic media that, are helping us to get the message out there, creating enduring engagements so that when we have an engagement, we can record it, we can create surveys, and then people can continue to participate in it even after the fact. So I want to play you this little clip a colleague of mine, Dilo, put together along with Juan, our videographer, that helps explain to the community what we're doing. And I may need to mute myself as my dog is getting ready to bark here. Let's see. Tell me if you can hear this. Greg, can you shake your head? You can hear it? Nope. Okay. Well, Maggie and I have something in common now. Okay, I'm not trying to get the. I'm not going to spend my time. I'm going to drop this link into the chat, and then oopsies. Drop this link into the chat, and you can watch it later. Okay, so this is our landing page for this. I'll also drop this into the chat. But the first component of this is a major update to the general plan. You can find out information on our website about those changes to the general plan that we're proposing to make. But we're right now right in the middle of the engagement for that. And we've just hired on Plan West Partners and a team to help us do the technical edits to the general plan. These are necessary because our existing general plan, even though it's a great document that I think still reflects a lot of the values of the City of Arcata, is now 20 years old. Not that being 20 years old is bad, but that it does reflect being, that it's lapsed its planning period. So generally speaking, a general plan is designed for a 20-year planning period. And so now we're getting into, the next 20-year planning period. Generally, we, like to try and get as many participants as possible. So one of the things I'm going to ask for you all to do is to get engaged and participate with us. And the way that you can do that is by, either emailing us and we'll get you on the list, signing up e-notifications on our website, or tracking at the bottom of this page. We have our upcoming events, and then, as I'd mentioned before, our past events recorded, so that you can go back and catch what the community's been saying to date. We're starting to compile documents like the community vision statement. This is sort of the core foundational part of our general plan. The general plan is the policy document that all of the other plans and codes flow from. And so we'd like to invite you to participate. Well, one of the core tenets that I've talked about related to this is our Arcata Gateway Area Plan. This is going to be a pilot project for the types of zoning that we'll do throughout the city elsewhere, and really transitioning the way that the zoning is done. Instead of focusing on what uses are allowable inside of buildings, we'll be focusing on what amenities do the buildings need to present. What is the streetscape going to look like? Are there going to be areas for parklets? Are there going to be combined parking for alternative transportation, so on and so forth? And so really driving the design through this targeted rezone. And instead of, for example, adopting maximum densities, allowing the market to drive what is the maximum density here, and instead setting what the footprints are going to look like. And so instead of telling you have to have a total of 30 units maximum, we might tell you have to have a total of 20 units minimum, and let you decide how to compile those. If you want to have 70 units and they're all one bedroom because you think that's what the market is driving towards, knock yourself out. And so in this way, it allows the the market to have a little bit more of a say in how those units are provided to the city. allows a little bit more flexibility in the types of uses that are allowed there as well. So let me see if I can you still see the gateway plan? I want to show you the area that we're talking about here. And so here's 255, there's Samoa. And here's it's just K Street. So this whole purple area, this is all industrial. For the most part, these boundaries aren't fixed in stone yet. We're going to be having some community outreach to make sure that we hone the boundaries based on what makes the most sense to the community. But this is the target area. We'll be looking to put approximately, we estimate 6,000 new housing units over the next 20-30 years can be built in this area. And so we're looking to develop the flexibility to do that. So that's almost double. There's about 8,000 units in the city of Arcata right now. That's almost double the number of units that there are in the city in this one small area of the city. And so you can imagine that's a pretty drastic change for folks. But the reality is that the current zoning, would allow for that type of development already. And so it may not be as drastic as some might think. And so we'll be walking through that process and what is that going to look like and what amenities do these developments need to bring to the city, as they come forward. So, really excited right now. Like I said, we've got our consultant on board. We're going to be having a lot more engagement over the next, year or so to try and develop the draft plans. And then the following year, we'll be bringing forward the final plans. I'd really appreciate your involvement, and I'd love to come back and share with you as we, get closer to having more work product. But I'd like to invite you to explore the work product we've already created. I'll drop some of those links into the chat box now and be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Great, thank you. I'm sure there's lots of questions. I see Randy. Randy, we'll start with you.
Sorry, my space bar didn't work. Unmute me. Good morning, David.
Morning.
Just have a question about the Humboldt State's plan for the Polytechnic. Is there any work on that or any planning going on that with the new general plan? It seems like that could drastically change the general plan if HSU does become Cal Poly.
Yeah, we have been. Obviously, they're at the very beginning stages of developing the Polytech, and we haven't gotten, into that level of detail yet with discussing what changes they might see as necessary for our policy documents. But certainly, we have a good working relationship with HSU, and we'll continue to work to facilitate their plans as well. HSU has recently purchased the Craftsman's Mall. And they also own the old Industrial Electric building out on Samoa. And I know that, those two properties will likely, be involved in that Polytech ultimately. And certainly the Industrial Electric, they've got some plans for it. But yeah, always looking to work with HSU and the community.
Any other questions? Excuse me. Folks have questions about housing? Yes,
So
Greg.
I put in the chat a link to an article, but there has been a number of articles talking about urban densification and land use planning. And the city of Berkeley recently got rid of its single family zoning and was able to put in now fourplexes on single family lots. And I know there's a lot of opposition to that, but it really is, the studies show, the best way that local governments can address the climate change issues by creating density. And so it really is an environmental approach to this. It's also an equity approach. NIMBYism really is about protecting one's own interests and not letting anyone else share in the equitable the equitable fruits of you know, the ability to live in cities or in towns or even have housing. And that's a critical issue that we're dealing with right now in all of Humboldt County. So David and the city here is taking a real lead on this, and I'm working with the city of Eureka on looking at projects and densification. But Craftsman's Mall is a real cautionary tale, right? That was opposed, and I'll be a little controversial. It was opposed and funded by some other developers, and now the HSU has bought that property and has effectively removed the local jurisdiction from the planning process for that, because now the state has control. So let's be careful about about what we do around some of these projects and how we approach them. End of editorial statement.
Yeah, actually, I'm going to take that as a question and add to it that, you know, I recognize that, you know, a lot of folks would look at the kind of planning we're doing right now and say, hey, look, that's really out of character with, you know, our community. Again, looking backwards and saying, you know, what does our community look like? And, you know, we do tend to forget, you know, all of those industrial uses that occurred in that area. This is a really great opportunity for the city to take full control of its development potential and its development requirements. This isn't something that I'm driving because I stand to benefit or because I like to see big buildings or because I like to create controversy. This is the state telling us you're going to create these units or you're going to lose control of your planning process. The state actually has laws that will require, if we don't meet our housing needs allocation, the number of housing units that we're required to produce over a planning period. It requires it gives the developers the control over what those developments are going to look like. And so really this is you know, an attempt on by my department to bring the community together and do some proactive planning to address what the state is going to ultimately force us to do if we don't take advantage of the opportunity to plan for it.
Thank you. That's a good point. And I think it's also important to look at all income levels. We talk a lot about very low income or low income housing, but the moderate housing options, people who are trying to buy their first home are really being squeezed out of our current market, which is not Arcata's fault. It's, you know, it's everything happening. And people who have homes who would like to sell them and downsize into something smaller as they age don't have those options. So they're kind of sitting tight, holding on to houses and that need to be turned over to families. And so having options that people can move out of these homes into helps with the housing stock too. So when you're building and looking at those design things, we need accessibility and affordability, not just very low income, but affordability for people. So we need it all. We need it all. I can take one last question, and if there is one, and if not, you all know where to find David, kind of remotely, email wise. Any other questions for him today? All right. I want to thank you so much. And in your name, in appreciation, we will be making a donation to Tri-County Independent Living. They are a local organization that helps support people with disabilities and advocates for full inclusion in communities. And so we're kind of related to what we're talking about a little bit. And we really appreciate your time and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.